Welcome in, everyone, to the Football Addicts Anonymous podcast. We have a real show today, unlike the 12-minute USFL show I had by myself on Tuesday last week. But yeah, how are you doing, Logan?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Excited to talk some ball.
Yes, sir. Happy belated 4th of July. Get the word
Happy July 5th.
Okay, we got quite a show here. USFL Championship game recap. Going to talk about that game. Going to go over the USFL awards again before we do that, so I can get Logan's thoughts on that. And then we're going to talk some NCAA news. We got a lot of stuff happening NCAA football-wise going on, movement, NFL news. We're going to talk about real quick our new betting account on Twitter. And then also we will finish the 8th round finally with the AFC West's drafts. Okay. So before we get to the USFL Championship game, like I said, talk about the USFL awards. I went through them very quickly last show. But off the New Jersey Generals almost swept the board. Offensive Player of the Year, Generals running back Darius Victor. Defensive Player of the Year, Gamblers defensive end Chris Odom. Coach of the Year, Generals head coach Mike Riley. And then your MVP was Generals wide receiver Cavante Turpin, led the league in scrimmage in all-purpose yards, was a key punt returner and wide receiver, scored 4 receiving touchdowns, 2 punt return touchdowns in the final 3 weeks. I think he actually scored both in the last 2 weeks of the season, week 10 and the playoff game against the Stars. But yeah, real quick, I just want to get your thoughts on how you thought those awards or anyone else should have got them.
Yeah. I think it's kind of cool looking at this list here and it's kind of a credit to the research you've been able to do over the course of the season. But all of these guys have come up time again every week on our show, kind of as guys that have been highlighted as playmakers, difference makers. I know you've been especially high on Cavante Turpin and Chris Odom. So to me, as I'm looking at this list, this looks very well deserved. And yeah, kudos to the New Jersey Generals, even though they couldn't get to the mountaintop like I predicted. That's all right. They got some accolades.
Yeah. And what was surprising was no quarterbacks, which we kind of mentioned that throughout the season. The quarterback play wasn't that great. I think, I don't know how many 300-yard games we had. It wasn't many. Maybe 2, 3, 4. I don't know. But it wasn't that many. And especially, the first 3 weeks of the season, it was low scoring there. The offenses weren't there. And the quarterback struggled. But yeah, Darius Victor, great running game. I believe he finished 4th in rushing in the league. I could be wrong. I don't have the overall stats in front of me. Yeah, but Chris Odom, that man was a monster. Led the league in sacks. I believe he had 12.5 in 10 games. And 4 blocks. He can play special teams. So he'll make a roster this fall for sure. Whether it's just special teams or not, he'll be a situational pass rusher that can give you depth off the edge. And like I said, special teams, he will be on your field goal block team for sure. And then Mike Riley, that's one thing I don't think we talked about is the coaching transition, success in the USFL leading to NFL coaching opportunities for any of the coaches, head coaches or otherwise. We'll have to see. I mean, obviously, coaching moves don't really get publicized unless you get a coordinator or a head coach position. Or nowadays, we're looking at QB coach as well. A hot spot. But yeah, Mike Riley, him and Skip Holtz with the Stallions, those two guys did masterful jobs. Going back to the beginning, like we said before, 3 weeks, they had 3 weeks to prepare their teams for the first game. And that the craziest thing about the Generals, they lost week 1 to the Stallions. 9 straight games they won until they lost in a playoff game to the Stars. So that was crazy in their own right. And then, yeah, Cavante Turpin, like I said, all-purpose yards leader. He can help receiving. He's not an elite receiver, I don't think. He has elite speed, but he will definitely be able to make some team as a punt returner, and he can give you action as your 5th or 6th receiver.
And I'm trying to get my hands on him for my pack.
Well, yeah, and for offenses, when you look at offenses like Sean McVay, who use a lot of the wide receiver jet sweep from under center, I think that's a perfect fit for what his skill set is with the speed that he has. Okay, it is USFL Championship time. The Birmingham Stallions, the hometown team, they got it done, 33-30. Unfortunately for them, it wasn't an undefeated season because of the Week 9 loss to Houston, but it was an 11-1 season. Like I said, head coach Skip Holtz, awesome job. Lou Holtz was in attendance for the playoff game last week, wasn't able to be there this week. But he did say hi to him after in the post-game interview. And yeah, I guess we'll start with the quarterbacks. I mean, it wasn't really pretty for anyone except Case Cookus. And we had some quarterback drama in this game late in the fourth quarter. Actually, Birmingham's quarterback drama started at halftime. Jamar Smith did not come back out for the second half. He was on the bench with cramps and was not able to play the entire second half. So Alex Magoo carried the torch, did a decent job. He wasn't asked to do too much. And I think they worked some QB run in, which was interesting because Week 1 in the first 2 or 3 weeks with the Stallions, we saw Jamar Smith run the ball. But he really didn't do much of that the rest of the season. It was Magoo who was their QB run guy. And I think the biggest detriment was Case Cookus went down for the Stars. KJ Costello comes in, 2 interceptions. One, a pick 6, which we'll talk about, and the other one sealed the game for the Stallions. But he did bring them back. He got them to within a field goal because they were down 23-33 late. I believe 1:46 to go. They got the ball back. And with around 30 seconds to go, he threw the game-sealing interception. But yeah, Shane Case Cookus went down, broken fibula for him. So it's going to be a push to try to get him ready if he can make a camp team this fall, because he deserves it. I mean, he was fantastic after Brian Scott went down early in the season for the Stars. And I wrote him off. I was like, no, Philly's done. Brian Scott, I don't believe in Case Cookus. He's from Northern Arizona. He can't do anything. But he proved me wrong, and he was fantastic down the stretch. One of the main reasons they won their playoff game against the Generals. Do you have anything on the quarterbacks? We'll move on.
Yeah, no, I guess just as a whole on this season, I thought it was very interesting how the USFL played it all along, with kind of having two guys that kind of rotate a little bit. I've kind of thought, at least in the NFL, that more teams should be investing in that QB2 position. I know the old adage is, if you have two quarterbacks, you don't have one. But I think it's such an important position that, I think it warrants more investment than what people usually put into it. And that might be just based on, supply and demand. Like, there just aren't that many good quarterbacks around. I think the USFL could benefit from having a little bit more consistency at that position. I know that they probably want to showcase as many guys as they can, because the more guys that they can kind of get on NFL rosters, the more legitimacy they have. But at the same time, you want to win games, and I think a little bit more consistency would probably benefit a lot of these teams.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the 2023 USFL draft. The Panthers have the first pick, thanks to Paxton Lynch in Week 10, beating the Maulers. So it'll be interesting to see quarterback, and who I would think has to be the play for Michigan next year. But running back wise, Bo Scarborough, whale of a game, 13 carries, 135 yards, a touchdown. Now, really, it was only 12 carries for 65 yards. He had a 70-yard run in the third quarter, I think that was. But still, 12 for 65, that's over 5 yards per carry. He was a monster all night, has been a monster for Birmingham, and I think he will find himself in a training camp as well. Didn't play the whole season, came in week 5, I think it was, and was stellar for them. And then your guy, Dexter Williams, led the way for the Stars. Again, that was Philly's issue all year. They could not run the ball. Never mind. I'm thinking of Tampa. Philly could run the ball. It really hurt them that Matt Colburn got injured in the playoff game, could not play in this game. So they had to turn Dexter Williams, who just signed this week, they said. Got a lot of work. Also, great game receiving for him, 4 for 73. He took a couple screen passes for a bunch of yards. And then wide receiver wise, Marlon Williams, UCF guy, 7 receptions, 105 yards, and a touchdown on 10 targets. Great championship game for him. Jordan Sewell for the Stars, 5 for 66. He caught 2 touchdowns from Case Cookus on 5 targets, caught all 5 of his targets. Victor Bolton had 9 targets and a touchdown. Chris Rowland, he was the do-it-all guy, 4 catches, 55 yards, scored a touchdown on 9 targets, also ran it 3 times for 29 yards. And then Devin Gray scored for the Stars as well, 1 touchdown on 7 targets. Anything before we get to defense?
No, I think you covered it.
Defensively, my player of the game is Scoob. Scooby Wright, the Shark Dog, self-proclaimed shark dog. 3
Love it.
tackles, 1 solo. He had a pass deflection, and like I mentioned earlier, 46-yard pick six. That ended up being the game-winning touchdown. Got them up 10, 33, 23. And then the only real guy that had stats for the Stars, safety Cody Brown, 3 tackles, 1 solo, 2 pass deflections. Willie Yarbury, 2 sacks for the Stallions, and Christian McFarland, game-sealing interception off of KJ Costello.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you got a name like Scooby Wright, I mean, you're destined for football greatness.
Yeah, and I mean, he was awesome at Arizona. He won almost every major award at Arizona for defense. Did not work out first time in the NFL. He was looking at some different stuff, boxing, UFC, I believe, and then decided he wanted to take another chance at football. Skip Holtz called him up, and here we are. Okay. The Stars covered plus 4.5, and over 45 hit. And while we are talking about odds, I wasn't sure where to put this in the show, but we'll talk about it now. The FAA podcast has expanded our Twitter. We have added an account. It is FAA Bets, FAA_bets. That is capital FAA _ B. And bets. And we had our first 2 future plays leaked out on July 4th yesterday. They are the Steelers over 7 wins and the Packers over 11 wins. I know you want to talk about your Packers, so go ahead. I know I broke it down on our Twitter, but you can talk more on your team.
Yeah, that's definitely one that I'm hammering, and it's interesting. I've seen people out there who are fading the Packers so much as to say that they're like gonna regress to like 9 wins, and I do not see it happening. Do not see it happening in the NFC, especially the NFC North. I think 11 wins is the minimum. I think that, Devontae Adams is obviously a huge loss, but the Matt LaFleur system has always tried to each year put more and more emphasis on establishing the running game and using that to set up the pass. So I think you're going to see that a lot more. I think you're going to be seeing A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones used a lot more in the passing game to help make up for some of that production. So yeah, I think that the division they're in, you still have the 4-time MVP Aaron Rodgers. You're going to be fine, and I feel very comfortable with that over 11 wins hitting.
Yeah, like I mentioned on our Twitter, the NFC North, while it does seem like the Lions are improved, the Vikings, I don't know if they got any better. They kind of feels like they kind of stayed the same, new head coach. And then the Bears, I am very low on the Bears. So I don't think the division gives them much trouble. Even if they drop 1, I still think at the very worst, they're going to end up 4-2. If they drop 2 in the division, that's fine. That's 2 losses. And to get 12, you can still have 7 total losses with having 12 wins in their 17-game season. Hard to see. I didn't look at the schedule when I put this tweet out. That's fine. We'll break down the schedule when we do our NFC North preview, season preview coming up. in a couple weeks. But yeah, they've never lost. They never won less than 13 games in every season that Matt LaFleur has been in Green Bay for 3 years. And I don't see it stopping there. Like you mentioned, and I said the same thing. 11, I think the worst you're looking at is a push at 11. But I think 12 is very doable. Like you mentioned as well, the NFC is a lot weaker than it was last year.
Yep.
And the Steelers over 7. Look, this is a hammer situation as well. Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season. Even if they have a 500 season, which means they would have to go 8-1 to have a 500 season. That still gets you over 7. And I think the defense alone gets you 5 wins. So that means to push, you just need 2 more from the combination of Mitchell Trubisky and Kenny Pickett. I think that's very doable with the amount of talent that they have at the skill positions with Najee Harris, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, George Pickens, etc. The offensive line is still a little bit suspect, but I feel like they got better there with some of their free agent acquisitions. So I'm high on the Steelers. Not like high that they're gonna, win the division, win the Super Bowl or whatever. But I do think over 7 wins, definitely they're gonna at the very worst be a 9-8 team.
Yep. Yeah. I'm totally in agreement. Hammer that as much as you can. If you think about it, like whether it's Trubisky or Pickett who starts week 1, honestly, it's an upgrade of over Big Ben or why can't I think of his name? Mason Rudolph.
Yeah.
Either of those guys is going to overperform from what they had last year, which is a playoff team. So definitely hammer that. And the only thing that gives me pause about it is that division is kind of a meat grinder. But keep in mind for this season that it's very likely Deshaun Watson is going to get a significant enough suspension to where the Browns aren't going to be very competitive for a long time in the season. So it wouldn't surprise me if the Browns finish last below the Steelers, Bengals, or Ravens. So absolutely hammer that as much as you can.
Yeah, and we will be dropping at least 2 futures, win totals. More than likely, it's going to be win totals, over under win totals. I know I already have one locked in for next week. We'll see if I can find a second one that I like. But yeah, we'll be dropping another 2 win totals every week on Monday, right before the show. Actually at noon. Hopefully I can do it at noon. If it's not, it'll be sometime before the show on Mondays here every week up until the season. And then when we get near the season, we will be giving out player prop futures and award futures as well. So make sure to follow at FAA_bets on Twitter, along with our main account. What is that? FAA pod. I forget our other account. FAA podcast. There you go. I knew it was something like that. Okay. News. What a time it has been in the NCAA. So first off, one thing we didn't mention last week, quarterback Arch Manning, the number 1 prospect in the 2023 class, he's made his decision, and you chose wisely. You chose poorly. It's like Indiana Jones. And what is that one? The Raiders of the Lost Ark? Is that the movie? I don't remember which one.
It's the third one. The one with the Holy Grail because he picks the wrong cup.
Yeah. Arch Manning, you chose poorly, sir. He has committed to Texas. Well, Texas is going to be an SEC school next season when he comes out in 2023. He will be coming to Texas that season. Good luck, my young one. You're not playing the Big 12 schools. You are going to be playing the big boys in the SEC. So have fun with that. I'm looking forward to Georgia slamming Texas at least once and making Arch Manning regret not picking the Bulldogs. He's going to have to play his other school that was on his list too in Alabama. More than likely, he's going to have to play Alabama every year, depending on what the SEC does in their realignment and where they put Texas and Oklahoma in which divisions. So,
yeah. It's really interesting because everyone was waiting for this announcement and then he kind of just dropped it like random ass afternoon. Out of the blue. And I mean, obviously it's a huge win for Texas. But it's interesting in this era, it's almost more important to keep your commitments than it is to actually just get them. I mean, look at who their projected starting quarterback is going into the 2022-23 season in Quinn Ewers, committed to Ohio State, got a bunch of NIL money for it, then just transferred right away back to Texas, back to his home state. So, it's a huge win for Texas, but they still obviously need to be better because if they're not better, he's just going to leave.
Yeah, and I think that was a big issue last year and why Texas they were in almost every single game, and it's just they could not close it out, and their quarterback play was a big issue in that regard. So we'll see what happens with Arch Manning and how he goes about his last year of high school this fall. And I would imagine, as most top recruits do, he will enroll early and be in spring camp with Texas. Okay, now for the even bigger news. USC and UCLA are leaving the Pac-12. They are heading to the Big Ten. Some believe that with this news, that eventually the Big Ten, the SEC, they're just going to be mega conferences, 20 plus members each. And that's how we're going to roll. The Big Ten also informed Oregon and Washington, two of the other kind of bigger time schools in the Pac-12. They're not interested in adding them. We'll talk about them in a second here and where they're going. But it was a weird. It's going to be weird. That's all.
Yeah, it seems like there are a lot of divided opinions on this, and I know that one of the cooler things about college football and what kind of separates it from the NFL is like the tradition. You know what I mean? Like deep seated rivalries, historic conferences, historic teams. But to be honest, I'm kind of leaning into this new era. And maybe it's because I'm a Badger fan and I'm excited for the challenge that it poses taking on USC and UCLA in the conference. But I'm just kind of excited to see what this new era is gonna bring. And I am of the opinion that it's going to be inevitable that that the super conferences are going to be the future, and it's likely going to be the Big Ten versus the SEC as kind of the two heavy hitters. So yeah, I don't know, but I'm right now I am cautiously optimistic about kind of what this is going to look like.
Yeah, I made a comment on Twitter about this, and it's going to be astronomical travel costs for a couple teams. Rutgers and Maryland specifically, they're the most eastward teams in the Big Ten. Rutgers is the most east. And to travel to USC and UCLA, I mean, that is going to be crazy, especially what gas prices are now. Granted, they're not going to be in the Big Ten until 2024, but still, what 2024 is an election year. So, not to get political, but we may or may not see gas prices decrease again in 2024. But yeah, see, I don't think of the cost of travel for USC UCLA because they're just loaded with money.
Yeah,
but Rutgers is not. It does not have the financial resources that those two schools do, or a lot of the other Big Ten schools do. Neither does Maryland. Maryland's a smaller school in the conference as well. So those two, I think, are going to get hit hard with traveling all the way across the country. Now, more than likely, again, it's the same thing with the SEC adding Oklahoma and Texas, though. It's like, how do they structure it? Are they going to move someone to, or are they going to move? Are they going to move two teams to the East Division and put USC UCLA in the West? They have to do that. I mean, at the very worst, but yeah, I just don't know how they're going to do it. And it's going to be weird. And I think it's going to be the same thing, though. I think UCLA and USC are going to get absolutely crushed by the powerhouses. Ohio State, Penn State will crush them. Michigan more than likely will as well. Wisconsin could, given the year. I mean, that's the one thing. The West, it's usually Wisconsin and the field. So maybe now Wisconsin finally has some weight to their division. Granted, we saw Wisconsin did not make the Big Ten championship game this past year. So,
yeah, don't get me even started on that Minnesota game.
But yeah, I'm not looking forward to it, especially because USC beat Penn State in Penn State's last Rose Bowl. So.
Yeah, I think one thing is I think USC could become a problem sooner rather than later, because after the, Lincoln Riley hiring, really the only thing that, was a mark on their resume besides current success is the conference. The Pac-12 is kind of a joke. So now that they're kind of in a bona fide conference, it's going to look very promising for a lot of recruits. So.
Yeah. And now it's going to be interesting because Lincoln has the central southern footprint already. Now he has the western footprint, and he's going to be playing Midwestern and Eastern teams. Lincoln Riley is going to have a whole countrywide recruiting footprint whenever they join the Big Ten. So yeah, it's still going to be weird. And also the Rose Bowl. I know there was questions about what is going to happen with that game because of the flux that the Pac-12 is in, which we'll talk more about that in a second. But how weird would it be? You're watching USC play Oregon in the Rose Bowl. That would be awkward. And before we talk about the Big 12, we have some more USFL. Birmingham Mayor Woodfin says there will be a championship parade for the USFL champion Birmingham Stallions. Date is to be determined. But yes, if you're in Birmingham, your Stallions will have a championship parade, y'all.
Thank God. I was waiting on that news all day.
But back to NCAA. The Big 12, this came out today. The Big 12 is in discussions to add 6 teams to their conference. Those 6, Arizona, Arizona State, Colorado, Oregon, Utah, and Washington. So, you may ask, who is left in the Pac-12? Well, I can tell you, there is Oregon State, Washington State, California, Stanford, and that's it. It'll be the Pac-4.
The Mountain West is about to get really good.
But yeah, that was something I don't think a lot of people saw coming. The Big 12 has now added itself in there to be the third mega conference.
Yeah. Well, I made a tweet. I sent a tweet out a couple of days ago. I said that the Pac-12 and the Big 12 should just get out ahead of this and just form the first super conference. Like, I don't know the logistics or how the teams match up or whatever, but like, just add Washington State, Oregon State, and Stanford. Just make it be the first mega conference. And then, like you said, you'd be the third one, kind of with the Big 10 and the SEC.
Yeah, and now it's going to be weird because, granted, I have no clue who's in what conference right now because everyone's just changing around. And
right.
ESPN doesn't have the updated conferences in their standings.
Well, and it's complicated because it's different years too. Like it's like one's joining 2025, one's 2024.
Yeah, but I have an issue with 2 things, 2 rivalry games that I love to watch every single year: the Apple Cup, Washington State. Washington State not added currently to the Big 12. And then the Civil War, Oregon State as well. That is a hot game that I love watching because Oregon State seems to have a chance every year. And they win a lot, more than people think. But Oregon State not added either. Colorado is interesting. They were a part of, I always forget who the Big 8 was way back when. I can never remember if that was the Big 12 or the Big 10.
I think it was the Big 12.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. Because I'm pretty sure Colorado was a part of the Big 8 that became the Big 12 and whatnot. So I think Colorado does have historic rivalries with some of the schools in the Big 12. I could be wrong though. I don't know. I'm not a NCAA history buff. But anyways, I mean, Oregon and Utah, those are the big gets. Those are the big fishes that the Big 12 is getting. Utah, the Pac-12 champion from last year. Oregon, the Pac-12 runner-up. So, those 2 schools are what the Big 12 wants. Those are they're gonna replace Oklahoma and Texas. Maybe not prestige wise, but competition wise, yes.
Yeah, Oregon would be huge, and then I mean, Baylor's been a pretty good program recent years. Oklahoma State had a great season last year. So, I mean, I think if the Big 12 does these moves and also includes, that includes Cincinnati, who's been great the past few years.
Houston.
Yep. BYU has been great under Kalani Sitake. So I think that if they make these moves, the Big 12's going to be all right. They're going to survive this era after what was panic mode after Oklahoma and Texas announced that they were leaving.
Yeah, I want to see if anyone has like a list of like all the moves and like a picture. Someone needs to put a picture of the updated conferences with the logos so we can see what they actually look like, because I'm having a hard time finding anything like that.
I think if you tried to do that right now, you'd get cross-eyed because it's just it's too difficult to know right now.
Okay, so here's an article. All the conference realignments coming between 22 and 25. Oklahoma, Texas, next season. That's incorrect. They say on this article until 2025. No, they're moving next year. USC, UCLA, 2024. We know that. And those two conferences not losing anyone. Pac-12 losing USC, UCLA. They don't have the big news of the Big 12 today. Big 12, they're getting BYU, UCF, Cincinnati, Houston. So the Big 12 is adding 10 teams by, you said 2025, right? For these 6 Pac-12 schools.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I hadn't heard it a year yet. So I don't know when the other 4 are coming. If that's next year or 25. BYU can move whenever they want. They're an independent. I don't know why they don't just go right away. And then the AAC, they lost UCF, Cincinnati, Houston, but they are gaining 6 from Conference USA. Charlotte, FAU, North Texas, Rice, UAB, UTEP. And that will be next season, 23. Sun Belt. Okay, so they lost 2 non-football schools, Arkansas Little Rock and Texas Arlington. But they gained 4 schools. FCS James Madison, and then they got 3 Conference USA, Marshall, Old Dominion, and Southern Miss. Conference USA, they lost a lot. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They lost 9. They lost almost their whole conference.
Yeah,
9 schools from the Conference USA lost. Interesting, the FAU left and FIU didn't. But yeah, lost Charlotte, FAU, Marshall, North Texas, Old Dominion, Rice, Southern Miss, UAB, UTEP. But they gained a couple FCS schools, Jacksonville State and Sam Houston State, and 2 independents. Liberty was independent, and New Mexico State as well. Our guy John Babington, New Mexico State, Conference USA 2024 champs, right? They are coming next season as well. And then they talk about some other FCS conferences and non-football conferences. But yeah, anyways. So, they do have the full list of the members. By 2025, this is what the conferences will look like. The AAC, you'll have 14 members. Charlotte, ECU, FAU, Memphis, North Texas, Rice, USF, SMU, Temple, Tulane, Tulsa, UAB, and UTSA. And Navy. Navy is a football-only member. Mm-hmm. So 15. 14. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, you'll have 14 football members because they also have Wichita State, but they don't play football. The ACC, 15 full members. That stays the same. Boston College, Clemson, Duke, Florida State, Georgia Tech, Louisville, Miami, North Carolina, NC State, Pitt, Syracuse, Virginia, Virginia Tech, Wake Forest. And they added Notre Dame in there because Notre Dame plays in the ACC for everything except football, which was the next place I was going because that's the next move. That's what everyone wants to know. What is Notre Dame doing? Because with the moves that we're seeing, I believe Notre Dame will be the lone independent left. Mm-hmm. BYU to the Big 12, New Mexico State, Liberty to the Conference USA.
Yeah. And the thing is, with these super conferences, there's going to be more conference games, less out of conference. So they're going to have a much harder time putting together a decent schedule. So they almost have to rethink their staunch independent status.
Yeah, the Notre Dame ACC thing just does not make sense to me, though, geographically.
Yeah, no.
They're not. Should be Big Ten. Any of the ACC schools. Yeah, Notre Dame should be in the Big Ten. Especially, why not? I mean, they're another super team that is always in contention. So, but Big 12, you'll have 12 full members. Baylor, BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, Iowa State, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, TCU, Texas Tech, UCF, and West Virginia. RIP the Big East, even though that's still a non-football conference. It is. The Big 10, 16. Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Maryland, Michigan State, Minnesota, Nebraska, Northwestern, Ohio State, Penn State, Purdue, Rutgers, USC, UCLA, and Wisconsin. There is your first super conference, 16 teams. Conference USA, 9 teams. FIU, Jacksonville State, Liberty, Louisiana Tech, Mid-Tennessee, New Mexico State, Sam Houston State, UTEP, Western Kentucky. Whew. That is that's a little that reeks a little bit, but that's all right. Sam Houston State might win the conference in the first year in 23 next to you.
That'd be electric.
I'm betting on it. The MAC, you have 12 members. Akron, Ball State, Bowling Green, Buffalo, Central Michigan, Eastern Michigan, Kent State, Miami, Ohio, NIU, Ohio, Toledo, Western Michigan. They haven't added or subtracted. You have the Mountain West, 11, actually 12. Air Force, Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, Nevada, New Mexico, San Diego State, San Jose State, UNLV, Utah State, Wyoming, and Hawaii is a football-only member. And then you have Pac-12. You'll have 4 teams. Right now, anyways. Cal, Oregon State, Stanford, Washington State. And then SEC 16, Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, LSU, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Missouri, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Texas A&M, Vandy. And then
Vanderbilt's not going to win another game ever in their whole history.
Well, they should move to the Pac-12. Sun Belt, 14 teams. Look at that, dude. Sun Belt has 14. That's crazy.
The Fun Belt, man.
Second most teams of all the conferences. App State, Arkansas State, Coastal Carolina, Georgia Southern, Georgia State, James Madison, Louisiana, Marshall, Old Dominion, South Alabama, Southern Miss, Texas State, Troy, and UL Monroe. What a conference. But yeah, that's the rundown right now. So the Big 12 will have, they're adding 6. So they're going to have the most. Yeah. The Big 12 is going to end up 18 schools.
And I mean, it's not official, obviously, but like, you know where this is going.
Once someone breaks it, it's
right,
pretty much set in stone. But yeah. Anyways, that was a longer discussion than I thought we were going to have. But it's big news. It's this is the real. I mean, between Oklahoma and Texas last year, now these moves this year, it's the first big alignment since what was it, 2014?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah,
it's a new era.
Now we have to go down a somber route because it's been a trend all summer. A bad trend, very bad trend. But we had more current players and former players pass away the past couple weeks. One very sad, Ravens pass rusher Jalen Ferguson passed away at age 26. And the worst part is that the cause of death was announced this past weekend. Combined effects of fentanyl and cocaine. So not what you want to hear for cause of death, but things do happen. And I thought it was very sad too, because we literally just talked about the AFC North. And I remembered mentioning Jalen Ferguson as like he was going to have a big role this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He led the NCAA, right, at LA Tech?
He has the NCAA career sack record.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 26 years old. Same age as me. So that hits home a little bit. And then a former Raven, former Colt as well. I didn't know he played for the Colts. He played more years with the Colts than he did the Ravens. I did not know that. I knew him as a Raven because he won the Super Bowl with the Ravens. But former Colts and Ravens defensive tackle Tony Siragusa, Goose, died at age 55. I have not heard cause on that one. Or no, it was a heart attack, right? I believe.
To be honest, I only found this out when I was looking through the script before the show. I was like, oh my God. Like, I didn't know.
Yeah. And I when he was broadcasting on Fox, funny as hell, but I knew he had a weight problem. Yeah.
defensive
tackle, which some defensive tackles you don't even know they're defensive tackle because they don't look like a defensive tackle. But yeah, I mean, he definitely had a weight. He was big. So I believe it was a heart attack though. I have to look to check, but um, yeah, Goose gone at 55, unfortunately. And just to pile on the shit, the shitty news that we've had this summer in terms of player deaths, current and former. Boston University, the leader in brain science and post-death CTE diagnosis. Well, they were given Demaryius Thomas's brain, found out he had stage 2 CTE at the time of his death. The cause of death has not been divulged by the coroner in Georgia. The family believes it was from the seizures he had been having starting in 2020. He also had been having erratic behavior, paranoia, mood swings, etc. All symptoms of CTE. Seizures are not, though. Seizures are not a symptom of CTE. So, still waiting to hear what actually caused Demaryius Thomas to pass away at 33 years old. But yeah, CTE was a factor in the last couple of years of his life, anyways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I keep bringing it up is that it just feels like the NFL isn't doing enough, isn't doing right by these guys in terms of player health. We love this game so much, but it feels like this game isn't doing enough to take care of its players kind of off the field. So hopefully it's a wake-up call for the NFL, because I know that especially the CTE stuff is something that they've been very vocal about in trying to do stuff about that. So hopefully just kind of keeps them honest and keeps them still hopefully working towards that goal a little bit more.
Yeah, and for anyone that doesn't know, CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, degenerative brain disease that occurs after numerous traumatic hits to the head. Like I said, erratic behavior, mood swings, paranoia, etc., are these symptoms while they're living. And that's what Boston University is doing a great job. I hope that one of their main goals is trying to figure out a way that we can see this while players are still alive, because that's the unfortunate thing about CTE is we can't diagnose it while someone is still alive. It can only be diagnosed post-death. So that's, I think, has to be number one. It has to be number one. We got to find a way to diagnose this thing while players are still living, while we can still help them. As we saw, we saw it with Junior Seau as well. So, yeah. And it's interesting, though, as well, because receiver is not a position that you would think would have CTE. It's usually you're looking at linemen, D and O linemen, and linebackers and running backs, because those are the players that collide most.
Yeah, I think it just goes to show how kind of widespread the issue is. and how much more needs to be done in order to protect player health.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's get happier now. We're going to talk uniforms. The Patriots, we've seen all these teams, they're coming up with all kinds of stuff. Their graphic design departments are working overtime trying to get new uniforms out. And the Patriots are bringing back an oldie but a goodie, and they are bringing back their red uniforms this season. The old Pat the Patriot on the helmet. There he is, Pat the Patriot. They will be wearing these uniforms once again in 2022, bringing them back with their white helmet now that we can have multiple colors for the helmets. So they will have their white helmets with their red jerseys, white pants.
Love it. Easily one of the best throwback logos in the league. A+.
Yeah. And one game, even though I hate the Patriots, I will never forget one game when this guy happened. And I believe it's probably that game that I'm talking about. The Patriots and Tom Brady in these uniforms. I don't remember what year it was. I believe they beat the Tennessee Titans 59-0 in the snow. In the red uniforms. Yeah, that I will never forget that game though. That game was, Tom Brady was just slicing in the snow. And they absolutely annihilated him. But yes, the Patriots will bring back their red unis this season. Training camp dates have been announced and locations. Won't go through them all, but I am, if I still have the picture, that is. There we go. Yeah, we got it. I am very happy that the Steelers are finally returning to Latrobe, Pennsylvania, St. Vincent College, historical training camp site. Very excited for them to return to Latrobe once again. That's really the only one I'm very excited about, because a lot of other teams, and I know the Eagles are included in this list, a lot of teams have been staying home and building their own training camp facilities. Cowboys will go back to Oxnard. I don't think they didn't go there the 2 COVID years, right?
Yeah, I don't think so.
The Cowboys will return to California in Oxnard. I think that's really the only two that are worth mentioning. Most of the other ones are at their own facilities. So. Okay, this is a fun note. Free agent running backs Adrian Peterson and Le'Veon Bell. They have signed contracts for a heavyweight boxing exhibition match on July 30th. I don't know who's gonna win. There's a big age gap, but
yeah. I put out a tweet. I said, I don't know who Adrian Peterson's PR guy is, but maybe given his past, like a boxing match wasn't the greatest idea to get some press out there. But it's happening, and you know what? I'm gonna watch it because why not? So I don't know. I feel like you got to go with the young buck in Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah. See, I think so I'm not a boxing or MMA, UFC guru, but I think so. Le'Veon, I think, has the speed. He's going to have the quickness. He's going to dance around, I think, a lot. But I think AP has the edge in power. I think Adrian Peterson, he still has a little bit of quickness, a little bit fleet feet, but where he lacks in movement, I think he'll win in toughness. And like I said, I think they won't knock anyone out because people don't like to do that in exhibition matches, which for the fans, we don't like that. We want to see someone get knocked out. We saw it when Mike Tyson fought, in the exhibition match last year or 2 years ago, whatever it was. Yeah, they were just running around the ring and barely throwing any punches. And people were betting that Mike Tyson would knock him out, but he never did. Wasn't even close. But yeah, I think eventually it will end up a draw, just like all the other exhibition matches do. They don't want to name a winner. Adrian Peterson will win, though. You cannot doubt all day. Le'Veon doesn't have that. He doesn't have the prestige that AP does.
It's not about it.
We got another addition to the Amazon Prime Thursday night team, and I said this. Did I not say this? I said they still needed to get a host for their show, and they announced one. It is Carissa Thompson. She gets the nod. She will host the TNF pregame, halftime, and postgame shows. Corner Aqib Talib and offensive tackle Andrew Whitworth will be joining her for those shows as well. So that's
quite the group.
That's going to be an interesting dynamic with those three together. But did I mention Carissa Thompson? I don't think I did. I mentioned the other girl. I forget what her name is. The other blonde. I don't remember. She worked the TNF games last year. My Philly
Colleen
girl.
Wolf, right?
Colleen Wolf. Yeah, that's my Philly girl.
Yep.
She did not win though. Carissa Thompson got it. Rams corner Jalen Ramsey, shoulder surgery. Should be ready to go for training camp, but worth noting anyways. I don't know why these players, I don't understand why they wait to have these surgeries. Like do it right after. Why not do it right after the season?
Well, so they can skip training camp.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, let's talk money. Commanders signed wide receiver Terry McLaurin, 3 years, $71 million extension, $53.154 million guaranteed. Scary Terry gets paid and he stays in Washington for 3 more years.
Yeah. Yeah, good on them to lock him up.
I mean, he's their only weapon.
Yeah.
I mean, Antonio Gibson, but he's been injured, and Curtis Samuel hasn't done anything.
Yeah, he's been their best offensive player since he was drafted.
And they got a steal, draft him in the 3rd round.
Yep.
Okay, some other money talk here. We got the details on new Steeler defensive tackle Larry Ogunjobi. His deal is 1 year, $8 million. Pretty good payday for Ogunjobi this late in the offseason. $8 million on 1 year. And then the Saints, they also got an extension done. They signed linebacker Demario Davis to a 1 year, $14 million extension. I know that is one of Chris's favorite players. Davis locked up now for the next 3 seasons.
Yeah. Keeping that really good defense intact.
They might need it, depending on how Jameis comes back from the ACL.
Yep.
Okay, I haven't seen anything new on the Twitter feed. So it is the 8th round, our final day of the 8th round. We are talking AFC West. So on the screen, we have Chargers guard Zion Johnson, 17th overall. In the middle, Chiefs corner Trent McDuffie, 21st. To the right of him, edge rusher George Karlaftis, 30th overall. And then we have a 2nd round pick for the Broncos, edge rusher Nick Benito, 64th overall, their first pick of the draft. And then for the Raiders, their first pick of the draft came in the 3rd round, guard Dylan Parham, 90th overall. So let's talk about LA Chargers. Zion Johnson, Boston College, 17th. Didn't have a 2nd round pick for the Khalil Mack trade. 3rd round, safety JT Woods out of Baylor, 79th. 4th, running back Isaiah Spiller, Texas A&M, 123. 5th round, defensive tackle Otito Ogbania, UCLA, number 160. 6th, they had 2 picks. Guard Jamari Salyer, Georgia, number 195. Defensive back Jasir Taylor, Wake Forest, 214. And then 2 7th rounders, defensive back Dean Leonard, Ole Miss, 236. And fullback Xander Horvath out of Purdue, number 260. So the Chargers draft, I don't know what to think of it. I don't think it was that great.
Yeah.
I did like both of their guard selections, Johnson and Sawyer. But other than that, I mean, they got a lot of their help in, the off season before the draft, the trade for Khalil Mack. Which I don't know why they're listing him as okay, never mind. They were on a 3-4. Never mind. But anyways, yeah, Khalil Mack, they got Austin Johnson as well in free agency, JC Jackson. So they boosted a lot in free agency. They got Matt Filer as well from the Steelers. Gerald Everett from the Seahawks. But, I mean, I don't know. There wasn't a lot of star power. The defensive backs I didn't know much about. JT Woods I thought was a good selection, but again, they already have 3 good safeties in Derwin James, Nasir Adderley, and Alohi Gilman. The Xander Horvath thing was weird because they have Gabe Neighbors, who they signed in free agency as well at fullback. And then Isaiah Spiller, he's actually listed as the 2nd running back right now, ahead of Joshua Kelly, Larry Roundtree. They have one other guy too. I don't remember the other dude that they've been drafting running backs like every year, and they just can't find a consistent guy behind Austin Eckler. So, and Ogbania, I didn't know much about coming out of UCLA either. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in agreement. Yeah, I'm pretty much in agreement with you. I mean, it's hard. I feel like your draft strategy changes once you don't have like a 2nd round pick or a 1st round pick or a 3rd round pick. Like one of those top 100 picks you lose, maybe you change what you're trying to do. I honestly didn't like the Zion Johnson pick that much. For me, and I know that Tyler Linderbaum is a pure center, but like Zion Johnson wasn't even the best interior lineman prospects, in my opinion. And for me, it was pretty early to take a guard. Now, we don't know whether they tried to trade down or not. But yeah, it feels like they just went for someone. They were like, look, we need another starter. We could use some more O-line help. Let's get Zion Johnson, who we know we can kind of plug and play, which is fine. I felt it was a little bit of a reach. Same thing with JT Woods. I like JT Woods because he's a hyper athlete, but they took him well before the consensus board. I think their two best picks were Salyer and Spiller. Wasn't too high on Spiller because, in my opinion, he hit the consensus ranking on him was much higher than what it should have been. Didn't like his agility scores. But I think where they got him for kind of that second or third kind of power back, I think is fine. To kind of pair up with Austin Eckler and Jamari Salyer. Love that pick for them. Really good value. But yeah, for me, it was just kind of a little below average draft. I'd probably give it like a C. Not much to get excited about.
I'm in concurrence with that draft grade. And what was weird for the Chargers? So they picked 17th in the first round. I didn't understand the guard thing over the tackle. Trevor Penning was sitting there at 17 still.
Yeah.
And they went with the guard instead, which is kind of fine. They needed a guard anyways. But the fact that they didn't draft a tackle at all, and they believe in their guys' development, apparently. That's what I've been hearing from Chargers camp, is that Storm Norton and Trey Pipkins, they believe with how much experience both of those guys got last year at right tackle, that they'll be fine this year. But good luck in that division when you have two pass rushers, quality pass rushers on each team. When you're looking at facing the Raiders, you're going up against Max Crosby and Chandler Jones. Mm-hmm. The Broncos, you're getting Bradley Chubb and Randy Gregory. And then the Chiefs, you're getting Frank Clark and Chris Jones. So, I mean, it's not going to be easy for either of those guys, whichever one wins the tackle spot. And that was a weird thing for me. Unfortunately for them, Brian Bulaga never worked out. Really, injuries hit him too much in LA. So, yeah, the non-tackle the issue.
Yeah, I mean, they could have taken Penning and put him at guard if he didn't work out at tackle. I mean, he's much taller than like what a guard is, but he's a mauler. Like that's his game. So he could have been a guard if it didn't work out right away for him at tackle. So yeah, I don't know. Interesting.
Yeah, that and the other issue I had, no receiver.
Yeah.
So they signed Mike Williams to a 3-year extension this offseason. But what do they have behind Keenan Allen and Mike Williams? They're slating Josh Palmer as their third guy right now, which is fine. They drafted him in the 3rd round last year. But other than that, it's a speedster in Jalen Guyton, who hasn't really shown much else in terms of route tree development. DeAndre Carter, who's a returner. Jason Moore, who I don't know much about. And then they have got Joe French, or Joe Reed, Morris French, Michael Bandy, and Trayvon Bradford.
Yeah.
You know anything about any of those guys?
I think the Chargers would have done well to almost look at the Bengals playbook, where it's like, okay, do you stand pat, take a offensive lineman, a guard, or do you try and get a guy who can jumpstart that deep ball passing attack? Because you have a franchise quarterback who can just uncork that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Get a guy who can just send this thing into high guard. I would have loved. I mean, it was everyone's favorite pre-draft pairing, Jamison Williams and the Chargers. Try and go up and get him. Try and go up to get Chris Olave. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or at least take a guy in the third.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to wait and see if this Chargers draft works out or not. But yeah, I agree. C is where the Chargers are. Probably the lowest grade that we've given out. Maybe we had a C- to someone else, but other than that, the Chargers are pretty much down at the bottom in terms of draft grades for us. Okay.
I think we got the Patriots worse. I think the Patriots ended up with a below.
Yeah.
I think I gave them a D.
The Chiefs, 2 first-rounders because of the Tyreek Hill trade. Corner, Trent McDuffie, Washington, 21st. Edge rusher, George Karlaftis, Purdue, number 30. 2 second-rounders also because of the Tyreek trade. They got possibly his replacement, wide receiver Sky Moore, Western Michigan, number 54. Safety Brian Cook, Cincinnati, number 62. 3rd round, your guy, linebacker Leo Chenal, Wisconsin, number 103. 4th round, corner Joshua Williams, Fayetteville State, D2, 135. 5th, guard Darian Kennard, Kentucky, 145. 6th rounder they didn't have. I believe that was also a Tyreek pick. They traded back to the Dolphins with Tyreek. 7th round, they had 3 picks. Corner Jalen Watson, Washington State, 243. Running back Isaiah Pacheco, Rutgers, 251. And cornerback Nazea Johnson, Marshall, 259. You had the floor, Logan.
So the consensus on this draft, I feel like, was really good, hit it out of the park, and I kind of agree with it. When they got that haul for Tyreek, I kind of felt like what they were going to do is kind of hammer the offense, which is what I wouldn't have had them do. And instead, they pleasantly surprised me, and they did put an emphasis on that defense because that defense needed to get better. I think Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis are great system fits, are going to be able to contribute early and often for them and provide quality play for them. And then I think holding off, standing pat at 54, getting Sky Moore, I think he's also a really good fit. He's not going to be Tyreek Hill. At least not in his first 3 years of it, but I think he's going to be a really good contributor for them. I think he can develop into a very nice, productive wide receiver for them. And then my boy, Leo Chenal, I'm telling you, man, I think he could end up being the steal of the draft. And I know I'm biased, but when you watch the Badger games, I swear to God, I kid you not, it felt like he was in on every defensive stop, like somewhere around the ball each time. So you pair him with Nick Bolton, who's just like born to play the inside linebacker position.
Yeah.
You have a defense now that has become much more improved, which is huge for an offense that even without Tyreek Hill, I think is still going to be very explosive and still going to be able to move down, the ball down the field with ease. So this is an A for me. Good on the Chiefs.
Yeah, I liked it as well. I'm going to go a little bit lower in the B+ because I'm not as high on Sky Moore as most people were.
Mm-hmm.
Listed as 4th on the depth chart right now. He does have the mold of Tyreek, 5'10", 195. And did a lot of the same stuff that he did at Western Michigan, going deep a lot. But yeah, Trent McDuffie, George Karlaftis, fantastic selections by GM Brett Veach. They're listed as starters right away. And I think they needed that. George Karlaftis, they couldn't continue to not have someone consistent on the opposite side of Frank Clark. And, Jones is doing just fine on the inside, but he had to move out the defensive end late in the season last year because they weren't getting anything. Because Frank Clark was getting double teamed and they weren't getting anything else from the other side. So love the first round pick. Sky Moore, like I said, iffy. I actually was pretty high on Brian Cook. Now, I didn't know too much about Brian Cook, but I just liked the selection and knowing what that Cincinnati defensive backfield was this past season, with Sauce Gardner and Kobe Bryant. Brian Cook was there too, and he had just as much of a hand in everything that they did at Cincinnati this past season. So I like that selection. He's probably going to be your safety 3 at this point, and then move into the spot when Justin Reed leaves because he's only on a 1-year deal. The Leo Chanel pick, I'm iffy on him. I am not so high on his coverage ability. It seemed to me anyways, that he was a Wisconsin linebacker that run stuffer. He's going to be a 2-down player. The Joshua Williams selection was intriguing. I don't think anyone really knew where he was going to go and what round. Ended up in the 4th, very high for a Division II prospect, but maybe he will pan out. I think Brett Veach is a guy that likes to take chances when you get into day 3. So take a chance on an upside guy. That's fine. Darian Kennard, love it. I love Darian Kennard. Grinder at Kentucky was a part of one of the best rushing offenses last season in the country. And they really, I think Brett Veach has just been hitting left and right on lineman prospects on day 3. When you look at Trey Smith, Creed Humphrey, the last 2 that he really hit on, and then even, Austin Ryder, Nick Allegretti, Lucas Niang, he's hit on a bunch. And I think Darian Kennard will be another one that he hits on to be a swing guard. Don't know much about Jalen Watson from Washington State, nor do I know much about Isaiah Johnson on Marshall. Isaiah Pacheco, though, I don't think he'll make the roster, unfortunately. But Isaiah Pacheco was very productive at Rutgers. Me being a Big Ten guy, Big Ten East guy specifically, watching Rutgers a bunch. Yeah, man, Isaiah Pacheco, he's not the fastest, but I think he could be a nice piece if he can make the roster, whatever, get on the practice squad. I think he'll be able to develop into something. It'll be a battle for that RB4 spot with him and Derek Gore, who was fantastic for them as an undrafted free agent last year. Grade wise, yeah, like I said, B+, and you're at an A. Okay, Broncos. We have no first round pick. Russell Wilson trade. But second rounder, edge rusher Nick Benito, Oklahoma, 64th. Third round, tight end Greg Dulcich, UCLA, 80th. Fourth round, they had 2 picks. That is safety Damari Mathis, right? Pitt, or is he a corner? Corner.
I think they list him as DB, so I think he's one of those kind of hybrid guys.
Okay. But anyways, Damari Mathis, Pitt, number 115. Next pick, defensive tackle, Ayoma Awuzurike, Iowa State, number 116. 3 fifth-rounders, safety Delaren Turner-Yell, Oklahoma, 152. Wide receiver Montrell Washington Samford, number 162. Center Luke Wattenberg, Washington, 171. 6th-round defensive tackle Matt Henningsen, Wisconsin, number 206. And 7th-round corner Fayon Hicks, Wisconsin, 232. They went heavy on the Wisconsin Badgers here. Russell Wilson made some picks in the 7th round, I guess.
The Russell Muscle connection.
Yeah, it's 1 year there. But anyways, I feel similar to the Chargers draft. I like this more than Chargers draft, but it's not to the Chiefs draft standard. Couple of guys I really like. Nick Bonito, I think my likeness for him has dropped. I really liked him at Oklahoma, and I just didn't see it in the pre-draft. And like I said, I kind of went down on him as the draft went on, but still a solid player, fits in their 3-4 scheme. Situational guy to start. The best pick I thought they had was Greg Dulcich in the 3rd round. Gonna love it. Russell Wilson is gonna love him. Albert O is the starter listed right now. Greg Dulcich will be able to get there by midseason, I think. He just has to work on his blocking a little bit. That's probably why Albert O is listed as a starter, but that's fine. In the meantime, Dulcich will be a stud in the middle of the field for Russell Wilson. Mathis, yeah, not too high on him. Montrell Washington, Samford, I don't know much about. And I like that they went receiver. The issue, we're looking at 162. Look who the Broncos, or look who the Titans took right after him. A guy out of UCLA, Kyle Phillips. I thought that would have been a better selection. Yeah, that was really the big thing. Maybe that was the only receiver that got taken after him that I liked better. There's a lot of picks after him, but yeah, I mean, maybe he'll work out. I like I said, I don't know much about him. Don't watch Samford that much. Luke Wattenberg, pretty good pick. Going to be Cushenberry's backup. And then Henningsen, actually, I really do like that selection. He was a Temple transfer, right? Was he the guy from Temple? I believe so. Yeah, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure he transferred from Temple. That's where I knew him from. But yeah, I do like that pick, though. They needed some interior defensive line help because there's not much behind the starters. McTelvin Agim is really the only key backup that they have. So there are spots to be had along the interior defensive line there. Mm-hmm. And Fayon Hicks, I didn't know much about. Delaren Turner-Yell, he's a box safety. Going to be a hitter. I don't really like his coverage skills, but then Awuzurike, same boat as Henningsen, but I like Henningsen better.
Yeah. Yeah, I think where I'm at with this is it's kind of a meh plus. Like I like it better than the Chargers draft, like you said. I actually am still pretty high on Nick Bonito because my hope for him was to where he gets into a position where he can just be a pass rush specialist is kind of that third sub package guy, and that's exactly what he's going to be for Denver as he kind of develops and hopefully grows into kind of the NFL style of play. So I think that's a perfect fit. Greg Dulcich, I think he'll come in, slide in, and give you the production that you're missing from Noah Fant. Noah Fant, good player, a lot of promise, but he never really exploded in Denver as probably they were hoping. I think Dulcich can be fine kind of replacing some of that production. The rest of the draft, I don't really know how to feel about, just because honestly, I didn't study a lot of these guys. Interesting picks. I do like taking the two Wisconsin boys at the end. They're coming from a strong program that helps produce a little bit of NFL talent. Faion Hicks was a really solid corner for the Badgers. Asked to do a lot of things because, in that Big Ten style defense, stack the box a lot. The Badgers played with a lot of three linebackers, so he was out on an island a lot of the time, did well. And like you said, Henningson's just a really solid guy. He's gonna just help be a body on the D line that can kind of reset the line of scrimmage, which is what he did really well at Wisconsin and what I think he can do at the next level for the Broncos. So I'll give it like a B-, and again, it's hard when you're grading a team that doesn't have a first round pick.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I am in the B-. I will one up you again and go B. Like I said, I love the Greg Dulcich pick. The Nick Benito pick is good. And then the Turner Yell thing, I think is quality add in a box safety role. And then Henningsen, I think, was a great value in the 6th round as well. Yeah, Hicks he's gonna have an uphill battle. Just saying. Looking at their corner room, I think they're set 6 deep right now with Ronald Darby, Pat Surtain, K'Wan Williams, Damari Mathis, Bleswan Austin, Michael Ojamadia, and then Isang Bassi and Faion Hicks.
For sure.
Okay, last team here, the Las Vegas Raiders. Did not have a first or a second round pick. That was Devontae Adams trade. But in the 3rd round, they went guard. Dylan Parham, Memphis, number 90. 4th round, 2 picks. Running back Zamir White, Georgia, number 122. Defensive tackle Neil Farrell, LSU, number 126. 5th round, defensive tackle Matthew Butler, Tennessee, 175th. Didn't have a 6th round. I believe that was the Jarrett Stidham trade. And then 2 7th rounders, offensive tackle Thayer Munford Jr., Ohio State, 238, and running back Britton Brown, UCLA, 250. So again, like you mentioned, it's tough when you don't have top picks, 1st, 2nd. And I think we are going to, well, that's the thing. We didn't do it. We didn't include Russell Wilson in the Broncos aspect, nor did we include Khalil Mack. We should have included both of those in those draft grades. But I think that still only moves mine to a B. I don't know if that moves you to a B on the Broncos. Chargers, I still think stays at a C, even with the Khalil Mack addition.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd probably bump it up for each of them, just 1 letter grade, or 1 B-, B+, or B-, B, C, C+.
All right. So yeah, we'll include the Devontae Adams trade in this grade when we get there. But really, I actually did enjoy the Raiders draft. Dylan Parham was a guy that I did not know too much about. I think Josh McDaniels, just like Sean McVay, thought Cole Strange was going to be there for them at 90th overall. That was who their preferred guy was, I think. And at 90th, oh, that's the next page. Here we go. So they had other options. Sean Ryan went 2 picks later to the Packers. And then there was Logan Bruss went to the Rams. Those were your next 2 offensive linemen, interior offensive linemen. So maybe those guys were better, but it's an okay selection. The issue that I have with that selection is it wasn't necessarily their biggest need, I thought. The linebacker spot is not that pretty for the Raiders right now. Neither is the corner spot. So I think both of those spots could have used a little bit more help. But they went with the guard. That's fine. Love Zamir White. Zeus, you have to, if you haven't had your dynasty draft yet, which I know my league has, I got Zamir White. You have to draft him. He could turn into the starter for the Las Vegas Raiders as early as next year. Josh Jacobs not getting his 5th-year option picked up. He's a free agent next year. And so is Kenyon Drake, I believe. So Zamir White will be low-key this year. Granted, we've seen Jacobs get injured almost every year the last 2 seasons. So I wouldn't be surprised if he has 500 yards this season for the Raiders. People were low on him because of his lack of pass catching at Georgia. But for one, Georgia doesn't throw to their running backs very often. And for 2, Zamir White wasn't asked to catch the ball very often. That was James Cook's role. So we'll see. I think he does have the ability to catch the ball. And but again, though, they have guys that can do that. That's why they have Kenyon Drake with Josh Jacobs, because Jacobs is the runner, Kenyon Drake's the pass catcher. And that's where we are at the NFL at this point anyways. So, yeah, I love Zamir White for Vegas. And I think knowing what they did in New England, I think Zamir White is actually a very good fit for Josh McDaniels' offense. The 2 defensive tackles, that was a big area of need. Matthew Butler, Neil Farrell. Neil Farrell I like better. It's interesting. Matthew Butler is listed ahead of Neil Farrell on the depth chart on ESPN right now. Unofficial, but still, it's interesting to note there. Thayer Munford, I thought that was a great selection. Thayer Munford in the 7th round. Thought he was going to go higher, a lot higher than that. Good tackle depth and development there. And then Britton Brown, the double running back. I didn't like the double running back thing, but Britton Brown is a good player to get if you're going to go double running back. Very productive at UCLA. And we'll see if that's the combo in 2023. Zamir White, Britton Brown.
Yeah. I actually really liked the Raiders draft. Dylan Parham's a guy who I felt could go much higher. I know PFF was pretty high on him. I think they had a 2nd-round grade for him. And I also do really like the Zamir White pick. And I agree with basically everything you're saying. I think very much that both Kenyon Drake and Josh Jacobs will be allowed to walk in free agency. And I think that's the right move for the Raiders. And I think Zamir White will be their their starter, at least their second guy, in 2023. And I think, Zamir White could be a classic case of just because he didn't do it doesn't mean he can't. We saw that firsthand in my Packers drafting AJ Dillon. Everyone said, it was a waste of a pick because he couldn't catch. He had almost identical pass catching numbers to Aaron Jones last season. He's going to be able to do the same this year. So, yeah, I wouldn't worry about that for him either. And the two DTs, I like, I've said this before, I like when you have a position of need and you throw multiple darts at it. If you can get one of those guys to hit, that's a big body in the middle who can eat up space and let Max Crosby and Chandler Jones go to work. And then Thayer Munford pick, like you said, he was projected to go way higher. Now that there must be something there, maybe in interviews or maybe medical stuff came up last minute. But I think once you get to the 7th round, great pick. Yeah. So I'll give it a solid B, close to a B plus. I think they did a good job with the limited picks that they had, and I think when you factor in the Adams trade, as you said, we're going to try to do. I think it's a solid B plus at that point.
Yeah, I am in the same. I am a B, and it is like right on the cusp of a B plus with adding Devontae in there. So yeah, I like the Raiders trade. I'm being a homer and talking about Zeus a lot, but I don't care. It's my show. That concludes the 8th round. I hope y'all enjoyed our breakdowns of every team's draft. It took a long time, only having one show here in the summer. Apologies. Internship. What are you gonna do? But that is the show for today. Next week, we'll be talking about we got training camp coming, dude. I saw it today. You probably saw it too. We're officially 10 Sundays away from week 1. So it's coming fast. And before you know it, we'll be back at Moles.
Outlining and
August 22nd.
Yep.
But anyways, yeah, we'll be back next week. Hopefully we can get back to doing Mondays. That'd be preferred for me. Got to clear your schedules. You and Chris got to clear your schedules on Mondays. But yeah, we'll be talking off season, July week 1, and start our season previews. And we're going to go reverse. We're going to talk NFC West season preview. So we'll be talking about, we'll look at their fantasy outlook for the skill position guys. We will talk about where we think order of finish in the divisions. And then we'll talk about record predictions as well for each team in the division. So don't forget to follow us on all our social media at FAA Podcast on Instagram and Twitter. FAApodcast.com is our website. You can check us out here on YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio. And don't forget to go follow our new betting account on Twitter at FAA_bets. Make sure to check that out. Like I said, we'll be dropping another 2 wins total futures next Monday, sometime before the show. Thank you, Logan, and we will see you back on Monday.